spool up from what I remember. Um,
Okay.
and so, yep, there it goes. It's going. We are up on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Facebook. All right. I think we're all live here.
Wow.
So we're gonna go. People are just gonna watch us chat for 5 minutes, though. Kiri, what's is there construction going on behind you, or is that?
Yeah, I couldn't. It's just someone refilling the ice machine in front of me. It shouldn't. It
That's
shouldn't
funny.
be too noisy. I tried to get a
No worries.
private area, but
No worries. No worries. All right. So, what part of Australia are you from? Well, we'll get into that in the podcast, but I'm just curious.
I'm from Western Australia, so
Okay.
near Perth. I went
Okay.
to university in Perth and lived in Sydney for a little bit, and then moved to New York in 2010, and moved down to South America 2 years ago. So
Wow.
international,
That's
as
pretty epic.
international as they come.
Right. That's fantastic. All right. And I sent you the questions via email. Did you see that, Kiri?
No, actually, I didn't see
I
that.
just did it this morning. Sorry. I meant to get it to you sooner, but
Okay, I'll pull them up now.
all right. And then I want to pull out the ones that you sent me as well, because you had some good ones there.
Let's see. These questions. No, I didn't get them.
Weird. All right, I'll send it to you in the Zoom chat. The link to that. 1 second here. All right. All right, everyone, if you're watching us live on any of our social channels, we're going to get started here in a few minutes. This is, we're giving you a little taste of Seller Roundtable Live. We normally don't stream this live. We usually make you come to the meeting so that you guys get the inside scoop, get to watch us set up, get to watch the extra innings, as we call it. So welcome. We'll get started here shortly with Kiri. Kiri, the format is just Q&A type stuff, but we have usually a decent amount of people who show up live, anywhere from like 20 to 50 to, just it really depends. And as we're going, we'll get questions from them and we'll pass those along to you. And then at the end, we end usually about on the hour. But then after that, we do what's called extra innings, where we usually cut the live stream or the recording. And then what we'll do there is just kind of just do a little bit of bonus content. We usually like just kind of chat, and there's usually some great content that comes out of that, though. Usually some stuff that we don't share with everyone. So
Okay.
you are welcome to stay after or not, depending on your day. I know that you might have a busy day, so you're welcome to bow out or stay. That's up to you. But besides that, that's pretty standard otherwise.
Alrighty, let's do it.
All right, so let's see if we got recording ready. We got questions ready. Amy, you got the questions too, right?
Did you send them to me?
I'll send
Are
it to
they
you.
in my email?
I'll send it to you on Zoom as well.
I promise that Andy is usually not this disorganized. He's moving.
What's going on, Andy?
Amy,
How are you? Okay.
That's not
a
true,
good
Amy.
excuse.
I'm usually very disorganized. Don't lie.
No, he's not. He's usually on top of it. Sometimes I do have to remind you.
Amy, you'll be happy though. I did post in all of our groups and social channels beforehand, so everybody knows about it. I remember to do that this time.
Good job.
All right. Oh, Kevin's
so people
here.
will show
Wendy's
up,
here.
But we don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
That's how we do. We just have a podcast for fun, and people show up. They show.
It's a good chat.
Yeah. So Kiri, you used to do Amazon selling. So you know how you used to check your your profit every day. You're refreshing that thing like crazy. That's what Amy and I do now for the podcast. We're like always refreshing Chartable to see like how we're doing.
Oh, how do you like Chartable? Is that worth it?
Yeah. Well, so it's free. They do have an add-on, but the free plan works, as far as I know, really well. It's just fun
Cool.
to, see how you're performing in the, the niche that you're in. Like we
Yeah.
are less than a year, and Amy, last I checked, we're number 28 in the marketing channel. So that's pretty epic.
Wow, good for you guys. That's
Yeah,
great.
thanks.
Awesome.
Yep. Okay. Let's give it one more minute and then we'll get started. We got our normals here. Kevin, Wendy,
Normals.
up at 6 a.m.
What's
What
up?
part of Australia is Wendy from? Is she gonna tell us?
I'm sure she will answer that question.
Up at 6 a.m.
Probably
every week
listening.
just for us.
Fellow Aussie. Welcome, Wendy. Sydney. Beautiful.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, let's get it started. So, Kiri, when I read you in, I'm going to introduce myself. Amy will introduce herself. Then I will introduce you, and then we will get started.
Okay.
All right.
And
Here we
Andy,
go.
you're hitting the recording button beforehand, right?
I will do that this time. I promise you.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Seller Roundtable number 34 with my co-host,
Amy Weiss.
and this is Andy Arnott, which I forgot in the beginning, but my intros have been getting worse as we've gone along. Amy, not better. That's bad. And we are very privileged and excited to have Kiri Masters with us today. She is started as an Amazon seller, then transformed into a agency owner. And she helps big brands get out the word, market, and increase sales, all that good stuff on Amazon. Welcome, Kiri. Thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into it. So, Kiri, tell us about where you're born, where you live now, kind of past jobs, college, school, kind of your past, just so people get to know you. Anything you want to share, feel free to not share anything you don't want to.
Okay. Well, yeah, my name's Kiri, and I'm from Australia. My original career was in banking, so I worked at a retail bank in Australia doing marketing and corporate strategy. And then I moved over to the US to JP Morgan Chase in New York in 2010. And so I've had this whole other life in commercial banking. And then while I was at JP Morgan, I started this little side business, a craft supply company just on the side, just did everything, went to some trade shows, set up a WordPress site, filmed tutorials for my products and put those up on YouTube, and just really enjoyed this process of creating a brand. And ultimately I launched a few of those products on Amazon and figured out how that system kind of worked. And then in speaking with my clients at the bank, some of those clients were branded manufacturers, and they were really scratching their heads trying to figure this whole Amazon channel out. And so I decided to go and consult for them as a consultant. This is in 2015. I left my job, started consulting, and today my company, Bobsled Marketing, is about 25 people, and we serve about 55 clients that are generally more established, larger branded manufacturers, like 10 million in revenue plus, and typically have other sales channels that are well established, selling to brick and mortar retail, maybe some direct to consumer e-com. And the Amazon channel it's important to them, but they don't know really where to start, and they don't have the resources internally to handle that. So that's been about 5 years operating that agency, and over time have continued to get feedback from clients who leave and some prospects that they wanted to actually not just always outsource this function, especially those that saw it as a very critical sales channel, but they wanted to bring their Amazon capability in-house and have their e-commerce team handle it, or their retail director handle it, or something like that. And so a couple of weeks ago, I launched a new project called the Marketplace Institute, and it's a self-serve platform for internal Amazon teams or individuals within companies to access the same kind of processes and best practices that we have as an agency, as well as being able to call an Amazon expert when they're really stuck. So yeah, it's been an evolution. I know that you've had a similar journey in like productizing something that you saw a big need for. And so I'm looking forward to growing that new business.
That's actually an epic idea. The whole taking systems and sharing them with other businesses, because I feel like there's a huge gap in that market. I feel like there's some
Yeah.
training and there's some some material on it, but nobody's really kind of taken it, systematized it, and then made it available to other companies. So I think that's pretty epic. That's I think that's going to do well, in my opinion.
I hope so.
when did you first learn about Amazon and kind of the opportunity there?
Oh, I'm a huge podcast junkie. I love podcasts, and I have been a big listener of one in particular called E-commerce Fuel. Do you know that one? Hosted
I've
by
heard of
Andrew
it.
Udarian.
Mm-hmm.
Been around for ages, and I've listened to that right back, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever he started. And he had a guest on, must have been about 2013, talking about Amazon. And initially, I just run this tiny little craft product brand selling very obscure things, that like lamp making supplies it was. So about as obscure as you could possibly get. And I used to shop on Amazon, but when I first heard about, you could sell on Amazon too, I was like, that's ridiculous. No one's going to buy my lamp making supplies on Amazon. But I decided to give it a try, and I was quite surprised what the volume was.
Cool. Yeah. So for you guys hearing some sound in the background, we apologize for that. Kiri's in a co-working space, so it's a little busy in there. So we apologize for that. But I promise you that the content is going to be well worth sticking through that. So Kiri, what was your biggest challenge with Amazon kind of once you got started? And did you do take any courses? I know you said you did, listening to podcasts. Were there anything else that you did to kind of get up to speed with when you first started on Amazon?
Yeah, that's a great question. There was, back then in 2013-ish, there was not nearly as much content as there is today about how to do everything. And even the Seller Central interface was not very helpful. Like today we have so many data points that you can use, and even just particularly in the last 18 months, we have customer demographics, we have keyword research tools within Amazon, we have shopping basket analytics, and all these different types of ads that we can run. So today, if you're getting started, I know that people talk about competition a lot and that it's very crowded to get into this space and challenging. But on the plus side, you also have so much more information at your disposal. People who have done this before, agencies, consultants, everyone's putting out great content, and Amazon's, dare I say it, a lot more helpful these days as well. So people might tear me apart about that, but yeah, it's changed a lot.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that because I see people griping a lot about dealing with Amazon. And in some cases, it's completely justified. Kevin, who's listening right now, has had a hellish experience pretty similar to what I had kind of the first or second year, where he's just getting hijacked left and right, even being brand registered and all that. So that system, I think, is still, needs a lot of work. That being said, though, Kiri, I agree with you completely in the fact that the tools and the resources and things like Project Zero, all these things that they're rolling out, the PBC platform. I mean, there's so many other great things going on, that even though there are problems, it's much better than it was before. And just like you mentioned, back then it was like the Wild West. I started in 2012, so right around the same time, it was the Wild West. It was like if you got hijacked or something like that, there wasn't really a whole lot that you could do. So it was even worse then. I know that's hard to believe, people, but definitely some good insight there. So Kiri, when you're doing dealing with clients, are you doing mostly marketing, or do you do any type of product research, product development, things like that?
Well, since we work with established brands, they typically have their product assortment pretty locked down. They know who they are, what they're good at. They have their supply chain in place. So it's really about taking what has worked well in other channels and translating that to Amazon. And I guess in some situations, we might give them the advice that, look, this is particularly crowded, or we might even be able to identify opportunities for them to grow their catalog. But it's generally, we're taking something that's already worked for a little while in a different channel. And so the suite of services that we offer, there's 4 sort of main categories, and this is helpful for people at any stage to think about how you're approaching each of these, and maybe resourcing it with freelancers and consultants and things like that. So the first is operations, and so that includes inventory projections and planning, fee analysis and auditing everything that Amazon does with your FBA fees, handling cases when Amazon miscategorizes your product as hazmat, and just all that sort of random stuff that comes up that's operationally driven from your Seller Central dashboard. So that's operations. Brand protection, someone just mentioned transparency, and there's this area is changing so much as to how low some of your competitors are willing to go to take you out of action. And there's some really unfortunate stories around bogus patent claims, which I wrote about yesterday. I would be happy to share this new program that Amazon's got going on. Brand protection is really about who's selling your product and what are customers saying about your product on Amazon. So resellers, IP, and also just responding to customer reviews, especially the negative ones. So that's just something that lots of brands just don't even think about, don't have any one sort of responsible for that. The third piece is organic marketing. So all of your SEO functions and content development for product pages and storefronts. And then finally, advertising, so PPC. And we've also started doing some DSP for some brands where it makes sense as well.
Awesome. Interesting. So seeing we do a lot of similar functions with our agency, even though we're a lot newer than you. But what I'm curious about is, how are you keeping up with like the current trends? I know that for us, that's a pretty difficult thing to do. Are you guys doing, do you just research what other people are experienced? Do you guys do in-house testing? Kind of how are you keeping up with the trends on all that stuff?
Yeah, so we have about 55 clients. So we generally get a sense of new programs and new features that Amazon's testing out across, they generally run some small tests first, and so we compare notes about what's going on in various accounts and in various categories and how that matches up elsewhere. It's a full-time job for me personally to stay up to date with all of the trends. I write for Forbes Retail as a contributor, and I do a podcast as well, and so that's something that I personally have really invested in to. I mean, it's a full-time job. Seriously, you guys understand that as well. There's something new every day. There's a new program. There's a rule change. There's an algorithm tweak. There is something going on now, like the government's getting involved with how Amazon's running their business. So there is no shortage of things to think about and talk about, and give your best advice to brands who are struggling to make sense of, how should I respond to this change?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've read a bunch of your articles. They're fantastic. If you guys haven't, go back and dig some up. And I usually post them a lot, like on LinkedIn and some of my other stuff. But definitely,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Kiri's got some of the best articles I've read, and I'm usually nodding my head as I read them. So Kiri,
channeling Andy in my blog post.
I don't know about that, but
what would Andy say?
But on that note, how because Amy and I are really into this part of the business right now. We recently both listened to a book called Clockwork, which is all about building systems. If you guys haven't either listened to it which is the format I always like, or read it, check it out. It's Clockwork. Mike Michalowicz, I believe, is how you pronounce his last name. Anyway, it's all about.
I didn't know about this book, but I read his previous one.
Profit First.
Profit First.
Yeah,
so good. It is.
Yeah, it's
gold.
Yeah, it's one of the best books I've read in terms of my business, just because like I'm always searching for an easy way to build processes, and I feel like nobody has ever nailed that except for Mike. Mike like puts it in a way that's easy to digest, actionable. All these, hopefully he sells tons of books by by when people listening to this go out and buy it, because it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But on that note, Kiri, like what did you do? I think you said you have a team of 15, and I'm guessing there probably a lot of them are virtual because you're a jet setter, it seems like. So how are you managing all these people? How did you scale to that size? That's always where I'm super interested in it, and that translates also to people running Amazon businesses.
That is a really good question. I don't get asked this very often. So I've got a team of 25 now. So it's been an evolution over the last 5 years. I'll tell you where I am right now, which is I have a president running the company now, and that means that I'm not involved with day-to-day decisions and management, and I can focus on what are my unique talents, which is really looking at the industry and the trends and sort of commenting on those and helping our existing clients, and also that's a great marketing channel for us as well. But it took me 4.5 years to get to that point where I could hire someone to do all that. Along the way, I've tried to sort of hire before I was fully financially ready, and this is a big Mike Michalowicz no but if you're growing fast, then you need to go out on a limb and hire people before you're fully ready, and you've just got to trust that the next month and the month after that you're going to keep growing at the same rate. Now that doesn't always happen, and sometimes you end up in a little bit of a ditch, and this has happened to me before, but it really depends how aggressive what you're willing to go, how confident you are that your trajectory is going to keep going up at the same rate that it has been. But if you really want to grow and start removing yourself from all the day-to-day stuff, and particularly the things that you don't like doing or that really tire you, then you need to take some risks occasionally and hire before you're fully financially ready.
I think what Mike says in the Clockwork book, which is really interesting, I was listening to this morning, he talks about, in order to become financially ready in the future to hire that person, start putting aside, kind of like in Profit First, how you set aside your profit. He says, open up an account for that future employee and start putting aside what their monthly salary would be every month. And he says it's going to hurt in the beginning, but ultimately then you're ready to hire them, you're good to go. But I completely agree with you that sometimes you can never be completely ready. And what ends up happening is sometimes it ends up stifling your growth. So you need to kind of, like you said, go out on a limb and make that hire so that you can grow. And I love that you're focusing on what you're really good at, your strength in your business, and you are, growing your team with their strengths, kind of running the other sides of things. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. So Kiri, excuse me, on that note, what are some of the trends that you're seeing today? And also moving into Q4, some of the stuff that might be helping some of your bigger clients that could maybe translate to our listeners. Even though we do have the gambit, we have people just starting all the way up to probably I went to a Neil Patel event in LA, and I met some people who work for larger companies that had listened to us before, which I thought was pretty awesome. But any tips that you can give us marketing wise that will translate across the board? Something that might not be super front and center that you hear from other Amazon experts.
Yeah, actually, so like we just talked about, not doing all the day-to-day frees me up to do some cool content marketing stuff. And I just want to show you, this may not be relevant to everyone listening, but I did just launch this book, Amazon for CMOs, last week. And in that book with my co-author, we interviewed about 15 CMOs some smaller companies, but bigger companies like Mondelez, Samsonite, Mitsubishi. And we talked with them about how they were approaching Amazon. And one thing that I took away from one of my conversations with the CMO was about investing in innovation. And if we think about innovation, we're thinking about like coding something or brand new product or something like that. But innovation is a lot of things. It's new markets, it's new processes, it is new programs and different ad types, like the new sponsored display ad types. And he even offered a rule of thumb that he uses and he's used in his career as a marketing executive, which is allocate 10% of your budget, your marketing budget, to innovation. And so I think to distill that down into like an actionable thing for a smaller brand is look at something like sponsored display. There's lots of experts who are saying, who have different opinions on it. It's a waste of money and Amazon, it's half baked. And then others are looking at it as a way to open up the top of your funnel. So, why not look at that program and maybe a couple of other programs and put that into your 10% innovation bucket? And not everything's going to work out, and you'll be too early on some things, and some things will just never work for you. But I thought that was a really good takeaway that a company of any size can really think about.
Yeah, Kiri, I think that's a great point. I think that so many businesses, especially Amazon businesses, are just locked into like the cut and dry PPC. Like, excuse me, there's so many clients. When we open up their ad account, they're not even running any product display ads, which I'm like, oh my God, there's such a big opportunity there. I mean, we've been seeing ACOS like sub 10% on so many different products, especially when you dial it in. There's a huge opportunity there. We've also been, preaching for a long time about general like Google ad search. Very few sellers are using just the inline text ads for Google ads.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. Those
And
are great.
and
the
point,
test.
is test. Exactly. I think that's the main point that Kiri's trying to get across, is that you guys should be testing, turning dials. All the most, or at least most of the successful Amazon sellers I see are always looking for not necessarily the next like black hat or gray hat trick. Some of them are doing that, of course, but looking and testing and seeing what's working. Whether it's trying Pinterest, trying Google Ads,
Yes.
trying Messenger,
new platforms.
exactly. Like testing everything, because it's what you don't realize is it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. When you find a home for your brand and where it's converting and where you're making money, then you can put more effort and more money into that. But you might not you might not ever know about that channel if you haven't tested it. So that's a huge tip.
Completely. And if you're dividing it up that way, 10% is going to innovation, sort of new channels, new platforms, new products, testing, new ad types, things like that. Still keep 90% of your budget where it's working right now. Like if you've got some really great sponsored product ad campaigns with a great ACOS and they're raking in the sales, don't stop those. Keep doing what you're doing that's working, but you need to, in order to stay ahead of the curve, you need to also test new approaches.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another huge mistake that Amy and I see a lot, is people budgeting out on campaigns, and I remember going into, I've told the story before, but I remember going into an ad account one time, and the guy was getting like a 5% ACOS, and he was budgeting out at like $20 every day. And I was just like, oh my God, there's so much opportunity here. Like, continue to scale that budget until you can't scale it anymore. Especially if that ACOS stays in that realm, it's just like leaving money on the table. So, another point I want to go back to, Kiri, is, if you believe in your business, sometimes it's super scary, but you're going to have to take that risk. I mean, my wife loves to tell people how when we met, I had $50,000 in credit card debt. And part of the reason for that is I was spinning up new businesses like crazy. But to me, that was like the equivalent of, I went to college, but it was like my MBA. I was learning so much during those, during those years that I was spending that money. If you
You were
guys
spending more on your innovation budget than you should have.
probably quite a bit more. Well, I was single back then, so a lot of it was going into my dating website development. Yeah, I mean, you guys, you have to, not be afraid to go negative sometimes. And if you truly believe in what you're doing, and you stick with it, I think that, you have to weigh the pros and cons. None of the, if you read all of the big success stories, majority of them talk about how they failed like 10 times, or 30 times or 50 times or how many other times, until they got to the end goal and where they consider themselves successful. That being said, if you have children like I do now, it's the risk quotient is probably a little bit lower than it was when I was in my 20s. But you still have to decide, maybe a little bit of credit card debt isn't the end of the world, or a line of credit or whatever it is. But don't just spend the money, have a plan before you spend the money, is what I would say on that note.
And I think it's also really important to note that, a lot of newer Amazon sellers, they don't have the margin because they maybe just have one product and they probably overpaid for it. So a lot of them, what I'm seeing with clients is they have such narrow margin that they're not actually able to then turn that inventory over and have enough money left over to even invest in advertising or growing their brand or finding that niche audience that would really be responsive to their brand. And, they're kind of putting that one product out there and going, oh my gosh, I'm out of money. What do I do now? And then they're going into debt and going further and further into it. So, definitely it's really great to think about the future and come up with that plan to begin with. Hey, what does this brand look like, and what kind of margins do we need to grow, and what kind of products will we carry, versus just kind of picking a product and throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks and not really paying attention to the margins that you need for growth. Do you see that at all, Kiri?
Yeah, for sure. And there's different sensitivities to margins across different categories and for different companies. And so if you're also a really well-established company, you might be bringing out a new brand or a new batch of products. You might be prepared to take a hit on that initially to establish yourself in that new category or with that new brand. So it's, that there's no point talking about like what your target profit margin should be. It's going to be different for every brand, but and every product launch. And if you're an individual or a startup, then you've really got to balance the fine line between being profitable so you can stay in business and keep investing in your products and brand and expansion, and then also trying to be competitive enough to sell some volume. So it is really difficult. I would, it's something you need to think about a lot, what your approach is going to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Kiri, what websites, tools, it sounds like you might have built some internal tools. Kind of what do you feel is essential, in your day-to-day when your team is managing, the 55 Amazon accounts that they manage?
Yeah, so we actually don't, with some very small little projects with macros and Google Data Studio, we actually haven't built any of our own software. And my other people will have a different perspective, but my personal viewpoint is let's stick to our knitting and what we're good at, which is the human service aspect, and we'll use best of breed third-party software tools. And I think at a certain point it makes sense if you're a big agency and you've got that expertise on hand, then why not give that a try? And obviously you've done very well with that. But I think you can spend a lot of time trying to recreate something that already exists in the market that works really well, and you can just pay, $50, $500, $5,000 a month for, because there are some really great tools out there with like Takeometrics, for example, popular PPC and profitability software. They have a team of like 10 data scientists with engineering degrees from Harvard, you know? So how, and yeah, so there's no shortage of great tools, and more come out. So I would say what would be critical for you to look at to automate some mundane processes and things that machines frankly just can do better than humans is obviously keyword research. That's just a no-brainer to give to a machine. PPC automation as well, that's absolutely huge. I don't think that you can automate everything. You really need someone with a good eye and a good sense of how to analyze things, getting in there periodically and checking things out and intervening when necessary. But there's great tools out there that can automate a lot of really mundane tasks that are not necessary for a human to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make some great points there. So when you started your Amazon business, and then as you went into the consulting businesses, did you have any like personal challenges that you really had to push through on your way, growing the business? Because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of hard times. A lot of entrepreneurs are introverts, especially the kind of geeky kind like myself. um, but did you any personal challenges, anything that you kind of had to push through and kind of persevere on your way to where you felt like I've made it type thing?
Two come to mind. One, back to the point about hiring before you're ready. When I had to really promote my current president, Julie, to a higher position when I was pregnant and expecting my first child. And so that was a real catalyst of, okay, totally not ready for any of this. And, don't feel like the business is ready, but I really, I want to take time off for maternity leave, and I need someone to step up and do this job for me. And you know what? My business grew faster than it had like while I was running it myself during my maternity leave. So that's just one sort of personal lesson for me was, hey, you don't know everything. Other people can, display their talents and strengths if you give them room, and try and just give up everything that you can, that you're not, don't have that's not your main talent. So that was a big lesson for me. And another one is my product business, this little crafts company. I worked so hard on that company. It was super niche. Worked just, I did absolutely everything, because you have to do bookkeeping, you have to code up your own site, you have to do all the fulfillment yourself, you have to film all the tutorials yourself. And that was really difficult, and it took me years and years to get traction before Amazon, especially. And it was every part of that was 100% worth it, even though at the time, like, I'll hopefully never do bookkeeping myself again. That's something that that's a career goal of mine, to never have to do that again. But all of the lessons that those things teach you in the early days are great, but you do want to get to a point where you can hand those off. But maybe during that process, also try and appreciate what that is actually teaching you about business, about marketing, about Amazon, because many of those things you'll still have to kind of rely on your experience later on down the track. When you see something that looks a little bit off with your accounting, or you're trying to figure out an Amazon inventory issue, you will have those things in your toolkit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny that you make that point, because accounting and the numbers is like, I despise that. I'm like one of those people who would just don't even talk to me about it. Just get it done, do it for me. Which is terrible. You can't do that. You have to know the numbers of your business. So I'm trying to get better at that, but I absolutely despise it. It's like the last thing I want to do during my business day is dig in and see where I'm spending money and where I'm making money, and all that kind of stuff is just like, I don't want to do that. I just want to focus on, building innovative tools, looking at data, solving problems. That's like the kind of stuff that I my bread and butter, what I love to do is just see like an issue that's happening and there's no, solution data wise, and how to like put that data together and figure it out.
We recently added the advertising, going over the advertising numbers and what's working, what isn't, as well as going over our budget and our spend during our weekly meetings. And man, I hate it when we get to that line on the air table and we have to go over it. But it has really grown us because we've identified some areas where we were like spending on ads that weren't even pointing to our products. Like we've identified mistakes, like serious mistakes. And it's stuff that you get busy in your business and you don't even realize. You're like, man, I'm just watching this money just fly right out the window over here, So like you said, Andy, it's not any fun. I actually despise it too. I feel the anxiety building up as we're moving down the weekly meeting. But now that we do it every week and we stay on top of it, it's really minimal. It's not like this giant monster every time you get to it. Now it's, okay, you know what? How was that going on our Google ads last week? How is that? Is that improved? Okay, our spend is down. Wonderful. What else can we do? Where can we improve? And then we find, kind of as Kiri mentioned, she said, my business grew so much when I gave somebody else the opportunity to work in it. And we just recently hired a new employee, and she's been attending our weekly meetings, and she just comes up with these great ideas for solutions to problems that we wouldn't have even thought of, and here we've been working in this business. We're trying to get, back from that by hiring new employees, but it's really helped us to grow. And in the beginning, we were super nervous about spending that extra money, paying someone, worrying, well, are we profitable? Can we really afford to pay another person? But really, we talk about it. My husband and I talk about it every day. We're like, oh my gosh, we're so glad we brought this new person on. And, it's been so good for our growth. So you kind of have to face the uglies, but if you do it every week and you make it part of your process, you're really going to find like, whoa, okay, I've got some room for improvement here. And it's a lot less painful if I address it on a regular basis.
Yep, that was one of the best investments ever, was hiring an accountant that actually was familiar with online businesses and e-commerce, because the one prior to that was not knowledgeable at all, and it makes such a big difference. I mean, the first thing he did was like, well, hey, why aren't you an S corp? All these like things that now would be super basic, but like back then, what you don't know what you don't know, so you really. I would say one of the best investments once your business starts growing would be, an accountant and bookkeeper, because to me, offloading that, not having to stress about that, and just being able to go in and kind of digest everything that's been put together for me is so much easier. So much easier than trying to stress and worry about it myself. So those are all great points. Kiri, on that note, as you grew this team, I'm really curious, because this is a struggle that we have constantly. How do you find good people? Most of our people are remote. So it's like, how do you find good people? Where are you finding good people? How do you stay in contact with them? How do you collaborate? Just more on the systems and business side. I would really love to hear some insights.
Sure. Yeah, so we're fully remote as well. So we've got staff, about a third of our staff in the US, and then 2/3 approximately in Europe. And that works really well for us. And we've gotten, we've got a good workplace culture that's been built entirely remotely. So I think that's a big difference between like companies who have an office and some remote staff. You can have like an us versus them thing going on, but if you're fully remote right from the beginning, everyone just has to figure it out, and you figure out ways to make it fun and engaging, and for people to, build relationships with each other. So one great, we're giving out lots of book recommendations today. One book that was mind-blowing to me is a book called, oh God, I'm blanking on it now. Let me just Google it. There's a concept called, it's called top grading. Top grading, that's what it is. Top grading is this concept essentially that like you've got A players, B players, C players, D players, And we've all worked with A players in past companies or within our own companies, and like, oh, if I could just like clone that person, they would, everything would change. And so it's kind of impossible to have a company of all A players, but you want to get 80, 90% A players. So this book really talks about, this is a book of systems about how to find, where to find them, and in excruciating detail how to interview them and ensure that you're actually following up with their references in the correct way as well. And it is, I mean, if you love processes, you love this book. It's very, very detailed about what you need to do. So we didn't do absolutely everything in that book because it's very, very extensive, but we took a lot of the best practices from that book. And so we have a very, very thorough interview process, check on the references in a very specific way. And over time, it's gotten easier and easier because we've invested in our culture a lot. We invest in the team a lot. Everyone's remote, but we have an annual company retreat where in July, everyone who'd been with the company for more than 6 months came out to Medellin, Colombia for 4 days. And we had the most incredible time. And it was a huge amount of effort, to be fair. Like, I spent 6 months working on that event. But at the end, people said to me, this has been one of the highlights of my life, coming to this retreat and we had some great activities and just had a great time. So it gets easier because then people are referring other people into your company. But when you're very small, it's a lot easier these days with a number of remote job boards that exist, and lots of people want to work remote, and that is a huge benefit to offer people. A lot of people want to have a flexible schedule. Hey, someone's doing their job. I don't care what time they're working, and if that's your viewpoint as well, I think you will find a lot of people who are looking for that type of work situation.
So it sounds like accountability wise, because that's another issue that we run into, is it sounds like you're doing more of a goal-based or performance-based kind of overview of the employees rather than like time tracking or anything like that.
We still do time tracking for everyone that's customer facing, because we want to know, like, sometimes you see weird stuff happening, like someone spending way too much time on an account or not enough time. And so with it, we're able to spot potential issues there as well. So we certainly do track time, and that's essential also for understanding, are we on track with our profitability metrics as well. So we still track time, but we've got people in like 6 different time zones. So, what time you start working in the day doesn't really matter. And if you have to skip out to go to your kids' school recital for an hour, but then you work an hour late, then that's fine as well.
Right.
So we still track time, but that is, sometimes people don't need to work a full 40-hour week if they get everything done. That's actually just a new data point to show us, hey, we've got extra capacity in the company, and we can afford to take on a couple more clients.
Fantastic. Yeah, great point. All right, Amy, I think I've asked everything I want to. Anything that you wanted to follow up with with Kiri?
No, I think we've covered it. She's done a really great job of growing her company and providing great information. And I love that she's already been through a lot of the pain points that a lot of our listeners struggle with and are going through. So I think, we want to thank you, Kiri, because you've really given people some insight on some things that they should be looking toward if they're wanting to grow their businesses.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, pleasure to share.
All right, guys, if you have any questions, if you're in the Zoom meeting, go ahead and drop them, please, in the comments, and we'll pass them on to Kiri. And if you guys are watching us live on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or anything like that, we do this every week live, 1 p.m. on 1 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays. We're just streaming this live just as kind of a little test, as a little teaser, just to show you guys what it's like to join us live. What's cool about this is, we get the audience interaction where you guys get to ask questions while we're talking with Kiri. So if you have anything that's specific to your business that you need help with, Amy and I are here along with, Kiri, who has a lot of experience in the marketing realm on Amazon with working with some big clients and things like that. So if you guys have any questions, please drop it in the chat. If you guys want to join us live moving forward, like I said, we're just doing this kind of as a test, but moving forward, we're going to go back to our normal meeting format. If you want to join us for the live recording, it's sellerseo.com/SRT is the short URL to get to the sign up page, and then you can join us here live. And we also, of course, publish this on the podcast on the major platforms. If you subscribe there, you'll get to hear this. Just know that there is quite a delay, between when we record and when it goes live on the podcast. So that being said, it does not look like we have any more any questions. So Kiri, on that note, let us know what you're up to. I know you mentioned your book. I know you've done some books in the past. You write a ton of articles. Your bobsled, mention anything you want to. Let people know where they can find you, where they can read all the great information that you're putting out, all that fun stuff.
Thanks. So I write for Forbes Retail, probably one article a week on average, so you can find me there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and make sure you put in the note that you found me on this show, and then I'll definitely accept your request. And I think the most valuable thing that I've got out in the world right now for new sellers and smaller sellers getting their foothold is the Marketplace Institute, which is access to our tools and best practices and SOPs and everything that we have used as an agency over the last five years, as well as what we call the Amazon Helpline, which is where you can call one of our Amazon experts in PPC or vendor central operations or seller central operations or marketing, and actually just get a expert advice on something very specific if you've got a question there. So that's a new project. It's just launched, definitely still in the beta phase, still trying a lot of things out. So if you have if you want to get a jump start on all of those processes and tools that you need to establish, especially in the early few months, first couple of years, this would save you a lot of time and headache figuring those things out yourself.
Perfect. Yeah, I found the website. It's the marketplaceinstitute.com. I will put that in the chat for everyone. And yeah, looks like there's a lot of stuff here, Kiri, for a very reasonable rate. So yeah, go check it out. People, looks
rates are gonna go up.
Yeah.
They always do.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, Amy and I just launched our PPC Masterclass. If any of you guys want to check that out, it's extremely reasonable in comparison to a lot of the other courses out there. We're calling it the basics PPC Masterclass, but you're going to learn a lot more than the basics. You're going to learn, how to set up campaigns, how to optimize them, all that kind of stuff without having to use a tool. We of course will show you how to use seller SEO as part of the process if you want to, but that will just be in addition to showing you guys how to actually optimize PPC on your own, which is one of the biggest requests we get from all our clients between Amy and I. So we want to teach you guys how to do that rather than relying on people like us to do it, at least from the basics. Once you scale to something bigger, then that's when you can go to the next level. But
I just want to say that it sounds like we're all trying to get rid of our day jobs.
I'm pretty sure everybody in this audience, if they have not done so already, is definitely trying to get rid of their day jobs, and not only their day jobs, but it's funny when I hear, I heard a talk recently with Gary Vee, which is, I have a love-hate relationship with Gary Vee. I really like some of his messaging, but then sometimes I shake my head on some of the stuff he says. But he chastised he was at some conference and some guy was like, yeah, how can I work for, I want the 4-hour work week or whatever. I want to sit on the beach. And Gary's like, no, you can't do that. You have to work for it. And I kind of laughed at that because I don't necessarily agree with that. I definitely think that hard work's going to be part of the equation, but at a certain point, I think everyone's goal is to get to the point where they're, I mean, that's why I love that Clockwork book so much, is everybody wants to get to the point where, you know, their business can run itself. Of course, you're still going to have to work, but it's only doing the things that you love about your work and getting rid of all the stuff that you don't. And, you know, at first I kind of felt bad about that. Like, oh, I'm pushing, you know, these tasks off to somebody else and they're going to hate it. But what you have to realize is there's so many people out there who love to do, you know, there's some people who love numbers. That's why they became an accountant. You know, like I hate that. I despise that. I would go nuts if I had to be an accountant. But that being said, some people love it. So you just have to find the people that love to do what you don't like to do, grow your business, systematize it, and then step out and sit on the beach as much as you want while, you know, doing the things you love to grow the business.
Yeah, that's really well said.
I love the way that Mike Michalowicz put that in the book that we're talking about, Clockwork. He talks about, you know, I know it's hard to think about giving somebody $5 an hour or $10 an hour, but when you start hiring all of those people to do that, eventually you're making a portion of their pay while you're sitting on the beach, basically, right? Because you're, you know, once you keep multiplying those people, the earning potential goes way up, right? So you think, okay, I'm paying this person $5 an hour, I'm paying this person $5 an hour. And so of course you're taking a smaller piece, but the pie keeps growing. And before you know it, you've been able to really outsource most of your business and still be the visionary behind it and watch it grow. And, you know, what you once were afraid of doing, you know, you now see it actually coming to fruition. And, you know, all of those little $5 an hour that you put out there have suddenly become, you know, a really cool organization that you built. So
That's a great point, and I just want to add on to what Andy said before, is like your one man's trash is another man's treasure in a way. Like I don't love doing the numbers either, but my finance guy, he's born for this stuff. He lives and breathes it. And some people on my team, they would, you know, freeze if they had to do what I do and go out and, you know, be on a live video call or lead a company and make really big scary decisions. So, you know, what, just the fact that you created this thing and that you're providing that leadership and the vision and direction of the company, that's something that a lot of people can't do, and they wouldn't ever want to do. They want to have a job and be given direction and know, you know, have consistency in their lives. And everyone listening to this call, I would go out on a limb and say you're not like that. And you know, I think this whole sitting on a beach thing is overrated as well. I think that anyone listening to this call, if you actually made it there, would get bored within a week and start a new
you need to
business
get back
anyway.
to work. So Wendy did
Yeah.
have a question. Wendy says, where do you find your outsourced personnel? She said, you know, Upwork. Where do you find people to work for you? So we'll let Kiri answer that first.
Yeah, so there's a few different ones I've used over the years, and I'm not so much involved with the recruiting myself, but I'll call out a few that I'm familiar with. One is Dynamite Jobs, and that's pretty new. That's like a year old. That's all remote job placements as well. Upwork for some I have used with varying success. I've made some great hires there and some not so great. LinkedIn. Oh my god, I love LinkedIn, and I will stalk people and look for, like, if I'm looking for someone in a particular geography or someone with a specific previous role or current skills, I will just go into the filters and filter and send them a connection request and just say, hey, I saw that you have these skills. I'm looking to fill this role. Here's a link to a job description. And then, you know, it's up to them. It doesn't, you know, you need to reach out to a few people that way. That can be very effective, because then, like, part of the concept in this top grading book is that A players are usually not looking for jobs. They get poached. And so just going back to that idea, like, you need to find, if you're looking for someone at the top of their game, they are probably not looking for you. You need to go out and find them. So I do love a bit of LinkedIn stalking. And another one that I used a little while ago, I haven't used it in a while, it's called Hire My Mum. which is a great name for a recruiting site, but that's mostly US based. Not all women, but particularly if you're looking for someone just part-time, flexible hours, like that's a really great place full of really eager and qualified people. So
yes, hiremymom.com is another great.
Yeah, it's great.
That about, you know, you don't really want to necessarily you know, and of course I keep pointing to this book because I listened to a lot of it today, but and it happened to be on that chapter where we're talking about like how do you make great hires. And I know what some people get frustrated about is they'll post a job, right? They'll post a job and they'll get a million resumes from everyone who's just looking for a job. And then they get really frustrated because they're like, oh man, you know, the person they'll call them in for interviews or give them a call for an interview and they'll be like, oh, what job was this for again? And it's totally not a good fit and you get frustrated. And, you know, so if you go out, like Kiri was saying, and you actually look for the right fit. So break down, you know, if you're looking for somebody to answer calls, look for a great communicator. You know, when you're just look at somebody and go, okay, wow, like this person is a really great communicator. And or put your job post out there, a really long job post, you know, and have them do something, you know, talking about your company's culture and how you're looking for a really great communicator. Have them do something at the end of that post that says, hey, you know, if you're interested, comment on this or whatever, you know, and put that out there, Facebook ad or whatever. And then you're going to screen out all the people that are just looking for a job, because the people that are the right fit, yeah, they're going to take the time to actually read it and kind of come after it, you know, because they're going to really resonate with, oh, wow, they're looking for a great communicator. And I love to talk to people. I love to answer phones. You know, I love to do that. You're going to find the right person instead of just saying, we're looking for someone to answer phones 8 hours a day. You know, like you're going to get all these resumes of just, you know, people who are miserable. The other thing that I found more recently is really, you know, in your community, in the community that you're already in, you're going to find people like listeners of this podcast, you know, things like that, that are looking, that wouldn't mind, you know, learning at the same time and being a part of another organization. So I found some really great freelancers to come work for Amazing at Home, as well as my company, just in my local community. You know, the lady that does my product photography now, I met her at the gym, and I learned she, you know, loved to do graphic design, and we started talking, and she was a stay-at-home mom. So I was able to poach her and grow her, and she has done a wonderful job, and she's just really grown her own business now, and I've been a part of that, which is really cool. So don't be afraid to look in your local community too, and just kind of try to see what people's great traits are, and you know, say, hey, I would love to know more about you liking to do photography or something like that, right? And you'll probably find really great people that way.
Yeah, Kiri, a lot of the ones you mentioned are great. I haven't tried Hire My Mom yet. I definitely want to get onto that, because I know that there's a lot of moms, like you said, like on maternity leave or wanting to be home with the kids, who have this like epic, you know, fantastic background, you know, working for some big corporate company where you can, you know, they want the flexibility, so they're willing to work for less than they would normally get paid, and they're also stoked about helping, you know, probably another family business, things like that. Definitely want to check that out. Dynamite Jobs is a new one. I've never heard of that. Upwork, you mentioned Upwork. I had the same experience as you. It's really a mixed bag. It's hard to find good people on Upwork. You spend so much time filtering through the applicants and, you know, hiring people and then firing them. And, you know, it's I wouldn't suggest Upwork. Not only that, but the hiring now, they charge you to invite people to jobs and things like that, which is pretty terrible. On the Filipino front, onlinejobs.ph, that also takes a lot of work to filter, but you know, we found some really great people on online jobs. But I agree with Kiri 100%. Is the few tasks that I've put out, I haven't hired anybody full-time from LinkedIn, but I've went like, hey, I need some writing done, or hey, I need some graphics done, or whatever, and I throw that out on LinkedIn. I've by far got the best quality people from LinkedIn. And I think that LinkedIn in general is a super underutilized resource. It's where I first kind of heard about Kiri and saw some of her content. So if you guys aren't on LinkedIn yet, especially if you're in the business to business realm, then it's invaluable, and absolutely you want to get on there sooner rather than later.
Love it. Add me.
Yeah. We're already friends, Kiri, but everybody else who's listening to this can add Kiri, and me too. Dang it, while we're at it, and Amy too. Even though Amy, I don't think Amy's on LinkedIn that much.
I am
Missing out, Amy.
Yeah, I am, but I was in the military for so long, and we really keep our public profiles on kind of lockdown. So my LinkedIn profile is really lacking. I need to build it out.
You just need to ghost like the entire time you were in the military, Amy, and then just move forward from there.
18 years.
Just ghost it. Just ghost it. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. All right.
I don't think
nowhere.
I don't think my government service is on my profile at all either. So to me, I'm like, that's in the past. I'm moving forward.
Well, it's hard when it's 18 years of your life.
I got it.
Yes.
All right, Kiri. Well, we are gonna stop the recording now. If you guys want to join us live, we've already told you how. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't yet, remember to subscribe, rate, review. We really, really appreciate you guys doing that. The fact that like we've grown super quickly. We're beating some of the established Amazon and e-commerce podcasts that have been out for years and years and years. We really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. And we really thank people like Kiri taking their valuable time coming on and giving you guys, absolutely some of the best advice you're going to get around. So thank you again, Kiri. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right. Recording off. Thank you again, Kiri. And we are still live, though, so let me end that. Hot fire. If I can figure out how to do this. I think it might be in Zoom. Yay.